Elon Musk, a billionaire, never imagined that a secret decision to step into his Tesla showroom would have such a profound impact on someone's life. He watched from the shadows as salespeople continuously ignored an old man. Hector Ramirez wasn't there to buy an expensive car. All he was doing was trying to keep a promise to his dying grandson. Beyond changing the final days of Hector's life, what happened next would lead to a medical breakthrough that would benefit millions. Kindness can appear in the most unexpected places and at the most crucial moments, as proven by this touching story of an unplanned friendship between the world's richest innovator and a humble bus driver. The sleek glass structure had been beaten by the Arizona sun. In the scorching desert, the Tesla showroom in Phoenix shimmered like a precious gem. Customers who appeared to have money to spend were assisted by sharply dressed salespeople moving between the gleaming cars inside. A man in jeans and a plain black baseball cap stood in the corner, observing everything. No one paid attention to him. That's exactly what Elon Musk wanted. He wasn't the world-famous billionaire today. Today, he was just a regular man, checking to see how his company truly treated people. Elon squinted and took a sip of his coffee. Then he noticed something near the front door. An elderly man had just walked in. His clothes were clean but worn, a button-down shirt tucked into carefully pressed khaki pants. He held a small notebook in his sun-weathered hands and had combed his silver hair to the side. The older man was clearly impressed by the beautiful cars as he looked around with wide eyes. A young woman was typing on a computer at the reception desk when he approached her. "Excuse me," the elderly man said politely. "May I see one of your vehicles?" The receptionist looked up quickly. With her eyes already back on her screen, she said, "Someone will be with you shortly." The elderly man took a step back and nodded. He strolled leisurely across the showroom floor, pausing to examine every model. He never touched the glossy paint, but his fingers lingered above it. In an attempt to catch a salesperson's attention, he would raise his hand slightly whenever they passed. Nobody halted. Elon scowled. He saw as one customer after another entered after the elderly man, only to be welcomed immediately. Businessmen in suits, young couples in fancy clothes. They all received assistance right away. The old man waited in the interim. An hour went by after 30 minutes. 3 full circuits of the showroom had been completed by the elderly man. He had taken a seat on a bench, got back up, and attempted to flag down a salesman once more. A knot began to form in Elon's stomach. This was incorrect. No one should be treated this way by his organization. At last, the elderly man's shoulders drooped. Glancing down at his notebook, he sighed and closed it before turning to head for the door. Elon made the decision to intervene at that point. Setting down his cup of coffee, he hurried across the showroom floor. "Sir?" Elon yelled. "Did you need assistance with anything?" The elderly man turned around, looking surprised that he was at last being spoken to. "Yes," he said, smiling softly. "I'd like to see one of your vehicles. I believe it's called the Model 3. "I'd be delighted to show you," Elon smiled back. "I am Ed." The phony name came out with ease. He didn't want his identity to suddenly earn him preferential treatment. "Ed, thank you. My name is Hector Ramirez, Hector." Elon shook the old man's hand when he extended it. Despite his advanced age, Hector's hold was firm. Elon led Hector to a sleek white car in the middle of the showroom and said, "The Model 3 is right over here. Despite being our most economical model, it still has a ton of incredible features." As they got closer to the car, Hector's eyes brightened. "It's lovely," he murmured. "Could I peek inside?" "Naturally." The door was opened for him by Elon. "Feel free to take a seat behind the wheel." Hector climbed carefully into the vehicle. There was a smile on his face as his hands lightly touched the steering wheel. His countenance. "This is different," he said. "This would make my grandson very happy." "Does your grandson have a fondness for Teslas?" Elon leaned against the door and asked. Hector gave a nod. Miguel. He is 12 years old. You're extremely intelligent and passionate about everything you do, Mr. Sorry, could you tell me your name once more? Elon reminded him, Ed. I take it that your grandson enjoys electric vehicles? Space rockets, solar panels, electric vehicles, you name it. He reads everything there is to know about preserving the environment. The walls of his bedroom are covered in posters of Tesla vehicles. Hector laughed. You're, he says, destined to save the world. A sensation of warmth spread across Elon's chest. He did what he did for this reason. For children like Miguel who had hope for a brighter future. And you came here to show him a car today? Elon inquired. Hector's smile dimmed a bit. Not to purchase one, that is. I was unable to pay for that. Before I retired, I worked as a bus driver for 40 years. All I wanted was a close-up look at one. Perhaps snap a few photos to show him. The notebook was stuffed into his pocket. But I've been putting money aside. For many years. Perhaps I could rent one for a day, I thought. For his August birthday. Hector lowered his voice after surveying the showroom. The fact is, I'm running out of time. Cancer. I was given 6 months by the doctors. Less, perhaps. He gave his a tap. Chest. I have it in my lungs. It's spreading, too. Elon's throat constricted. That's unfortunate to hear. Hector's voice was surprisingly strong as he said, Don't be. My life has been good. But I promised Miguel something before I left. I promised to get him a ride in one of my Teslas. The boy and my daughter reside across the nation. I would like to see him more often, but I don't. Hector touched the dashboard with his hand. He adores how environmentally friendly these vehicles are. That boy was always talking about the future. I want him to know that his grandfather also has faith in that future. Even though I won't be present to witness it. Elon had to take a quick glance away. He had met thousands of people in his years of establishing businesses and pursuing his dreams. However, Hector was profoundly moved by his modest wish for his grandson. Elon reached in and tapped the large center display, saying, Let me show you how the screen works. He enjoyed Hector's awe at every new finding as he described each feature in turn. They explored the car for nearly 20 minutes. Hector took brief notes in his notebook while posing intelligent queries. The old man's meticulous attention to detail impressed Elon. And how much would a day's rental of one cost? At last, Hector inquired. A piercing voice interrupted their conversation before Elon could respond. What do you think you're doing, excuse me? A salesman marched toward them wearing an overly tight suit and slicked back hair. Derek was his name tag. Derek looked straight at Hector and said, Sir, unless you're a serious buyer, I'm going to have to ask you not to touch the displays. Calmly, Elon said, I was just showing my friend here the features. Derek turned back to Hector after giving Elon a fleeting glance. These are not museum exhibits, they are pricey cars. Today, are you going to buy one? Embarrassment flushed Hector's face. No, I was just. Then, Derek said, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to get out of the car. There are important clients waiting. Looking about the showroom, Elon looked. Only 2 other customers were quietly browsing, while 3 other salespeople were chatting by the desk. I think we're fine where we are, Elon said, adding a sharpness to his voice. Derek now turned to give him a proper look. And who are you, exactly? Elon stood up straight and took off his baseball cap. My name is Elon Musk. I think I own this business. Derek's face was devoid of color. The quiet hum of the showroom abruptly stopped around them. Somewhere a coffee cup fell to the ground. Hector's mouth dropped open in surprise as he glanced between them. And everything changed in that moment of frozen time. Derek's mouth was like a fish out of water, opening and closing. At last he stumbled, Mr. Musk. I didn't know. Elon remarked, I didn't recognize clearly. His tone was one of disappointment rather than anger. He turned to face Hector, who had shocked eyes. "I'm sorry for the confusion, Mr. Ramirez." Like wildfire, word spread throughout the showroom. In a matter of seconds, people were pointing their phones at Elon. A crowd started to form. In her haste to get to them, the manager almost tripped as she rushed out of her office. "What an unexpected honor, Mr. Musk." She gave Derek a lethal glare before forcing a smile. "We were unaware of your arrival today." Elon said plainly that was the point. Hector began to slide out of the steering wheel. Quietly, he said, "Should leave. I don't want to start a fight." Elon touched his shoulder tenderly. "Stay, please." We had not yet finished examining the vehicle. Now, the manager was attempting to keep the escalating chaos under control. Workers rushed to appear busy. In an attempt to meet the well-known CEO, customers pushed forward. The local news had been called. Hector appeared uneasy with the attention throughout. He gripped his small notebook more tightly. Elon said maybe we could go somewhere more peaceful. They were seated in the manager's office 5 minutes later. With numerous apologies and sidelong glances, the manager complied with their courteous request for some privacy. Elon leaned back in his chair and said, "So, you told me about Miguel, your grandson." Hector appeared taken aback by Elon's memory. "Yes, last month was his 12th birthday. You're a smart boy. Hopes to become an engineer in the future. And August is his birthday?" Hector nodded. "On the 15th of August. He will turn 13. I wanted to take him for a ride in a Tesla as a surprise." He lowered his gaze to his hands. "Saying it aloud to you of all people now sounds ridiculous." Elon said, "It's not silly at all. What is the duration of his interest in sustainable energy?" The question made Hector's face light up. When his teacher showed the class a video about climate change when he was 8 years old, he was furious when he got home. Concerned about the polar bears, I was unable to sleep for days. The recollection made him laugh. He then discovered online videos of you discussing solar energy and electric vehicles. "This man is going to save the polar bears," he said to his grandfather. Elon grinned. He became a fan at that point. Hector acknowledged that he was the world's biggest fan. "According to my daughter, he forces the entire family to recycle. Forbid them from using plastic straws. He only wanted books about renewable energy for Christmas last year." Elon remarked, "He sounds like my kind of kid. Is he a resident of Phoenix?" Hector gave a headshake. "Boston, along with Valeria, my daughter. She works as a nurse. Only once or twice a year do I get to see them." His grin dimmed. "But I don't know when I'll see them again because of the cancer. The doctors advise me to limit my travel." "For what length of time?" Elon paused. "How much time did they give you, if I may ask?" "Maybe less than 6 months." Hector stated it in a matter-of-fact manner. 2 months have passed since then. The intended results of the treatments were not achieved. Elon remained silent for a while. "Miguel is also aware?" "Indeed. In our family, secrets are not kept. It's difficult for him. However, children are more resilient than we realize." "Did you intend to rent a Tesla and travel to Boston in it?" Hector chuckled. "That sounds like a really long road trip. When I come to Boston for a day to celebrate his birthday, I was hoping to find a way to rent one. Get a ride from him. Perhaps, like I did today, let him take the wheel." "When were you going to visit Boston?" Elon thought as he drummed his fingers on the desk. 5 days prior to his birthday, on August 10th, I have a flight scheduled. If I'm still... Hector left the sentence hanging. He didn't have to. They could hear the ongoing chaos in the showroom outside the office. Someone was attempting to line up people for pictures. Mr. Musk was in a private meeting, the manager explained. Elon appeared to decide on something. He quickly texted someone after taking out his phone. Please call me Hector, Mr. Ramirez. Elon corrected himself, Hector. We can do better than a rental car, in my opinion. Hector appeared perplexed. What are you saying? There was a knock on the door before Elon could respond. A woman with glasses and short black hair entered, holding a tablet. Did you send a text? Elon was asked. Hector Ramirez here, Lydia. This is my assistant, Lydia Chen, Hector. Lydia shook Hector's hand and grinned broadly. Mr. Ramirez, it's a pleasure to meet you. We have to make some arrangements, Lydia, Elon said. In August, Mr. Ramirez's grandson will turn 13. He lives in Boston, but he's a huge Tesla fan. Lydia was already using her tablet to type notes. And we'd like to do him something special? Not only for the boy, though. Also for his grandfather. Elon looked over at Hector. I'm going to promise you something, Mr. Ramirez. It won't be a simple ride in a Tesla for your grandson. I'll see to it that he receives something far more significant. Hector remarked, I don't understand. I would like to extend an invitation to you and your grandson to come to Tesla headquarters for more than just a tour. We'll create something specifically for him. Hector gave a headshake. That's really nice, but I couldn't accept it. Additionally, I cannot afford to travel all the way out here with Miguel and my daughter. Elon said, You won't have to. Everything will be taken care of by us. Travel, lodging, everything. Hector could not speak. Tears that he was trying to contain glistened in his eyes. Why? He asked at last. Why would you help us out like this? You're not even familiar with us. Elon remained silent for a while. Because sometimes life isn't fair, he continued. However, that doesn't mean we can't attempt to strike a balance when we can. He extended his hand and grasped one of Hector's grizzled hands. Let me handle everything. I will contact you shortly. Hector felt lighter than he had in months as he walked out of the showroom that day, past the throng of people still waiting to see Elon Musk. He had no idea what Elon had planned, but for the first time since receiving his diagnosis, he felt hope, something he had believed was gone forever. It was 2 weeks later. Hector sipped his tea while the morning sun shone through the kitchen window. The only sound in his tiny home was the ticking of the ancient wall clock. Every day, the thrill of meeting Elon Musk had diminished a little more. Perhaps, Hector thought to himself, he forgot. He has a lot on his plate. Significant. Managing businesses. Construction. Rockets. He glanced at his cell phone. No messages. No phone calls. He didn't want to bother Lydia Chen, but he did have her business card. Important people didn't need to have their time dominated by a sick old man. Moving slowly, Hector went to his front porch. The Arizonas. Even though it was getting hot, it was still a nice morning to sit outside. Wincing from the pain in his chest, he carefully lowered himself into his rocking chair. Although the medication was helpful, it never totally disappeared. A black car turned onto his street as he rocked slowly. It's a Tesla, not just any car. Silently, it slid to a halt in front of his house. Hector saw a woman leave, and his heart began to race. She carried a leather folder and wore a plain blue dress. It was a moment before he recognized her. Startled, he called out, Ms. Chen. As Lydia ascended the path to his porch, she grinned. It's nice to see you again, Mr. Ramirez. Call me Lydia, please. Hector and Lydia nodded. This is unexpected. Do you want tea? It would be beautiful. Thank you. They sat at Hector's little kitchen table, opposite each other, a few minutes later. Lydia took out her folder. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you sooner, she said. Before contacting Mr. Musk, we wanted to make sure that everything was in order because he has been working on something special. She gave Hector an envelope that was embossed with the Tesla logo. He opened it with slightly shaking hands. There was a letter on thick paper inside. The signature of Elon Musk was at the top. Hector read aloud to Mr. Ramirez. I would like to extend an invitation to you and your grandson, Miguel, to attend a special birthday celebration at Tesla headquarters on August 15th. I think Miguel will never forget what we have been preparing. For you, your daughter, and your grandson, all travel and lodging arrangements have been made. Lydia will describe everything. I'm excited to see you once more. Regards, Elon Musk. Hector's eyes were wide as he looked up. He recalled. Lydia smiled gently and said, of course he did. He has given this project a lot of attention. Project? Hector inquired. Miguel's birthday is coming up, and Mr. Musk has a team working on something special. I'm not yet permitted to divulge the specifics. I can tell you that he is personally in charge of it, but he wants it to be a surprise. Incredulous, Hector shook his head. I can't believe he's doing all of this, but given my condition, I can't afford to fly my daughter and grandson out here. Lydia reassured him that everything was set up. Everyone has access to private transportation. Of you, lodging, and, if required, medical assistance. All costs are being covered by Mr. Musk. She opened her folder and took out a few documents. These are the specifics of the trip. To make sure you're comfortable, we've scheduled a private medical flight and will send a car to pick you up on August 13th. Hector could not speak. He gazed at the documents, attempting to take it all in. Could I use your phone? Lydia inquired softly. While I'm here, I think I might give your daughter a call. Hector gave her his old flip phone and nodded. Lydia put the phone on speaker and dialed Valeria's number, which is stored under V. 3 rings later, a female voice picked up. Dad? Is everything all right? It's all right, Mija, Hector said. Someone wants to speak with you here. Lydia Chen is her name. She is employed by. You won't believe it, though. Lydia gave her name and the reason for the invitation. On the other end, there was silence. After a moment, Lydia said, Ms. Ramirez. Do you remain there? Finally, Valeria said, I'm sorry. I believe that something went wrong. Elon Musk, did you say? Elon Musk? Yes, that is accurate. And he went to a Tesla showroom to meet my dad? Indeed, 2 weeks ago. One more pause. Are you taking your medicine as prescribed, Dad? Hector sighed, it can be confusing at times. Valeria, I'm not confused. It was true. He sought Lydia's assistance. I know this sounds strange, Ms. Ramirez, Lydia said. I can email you the formal invitation and travel information if that would be helpful, and if you want to confirm that this is authentic, I'd be pleased to have a private conversation with you. Hector's daughter finally started to believe the amazing story after more explanation and a separate call between Lydia and Valeria. However, why? Valeria inquired. Why would Elon Musk help Miguel and Dad in this way? There are times when people just click, Lydia said plainly. Your dad left a lasting impression. Hector sat back in his chair, feeling overwhelmed, as the call came to an end. She's leaving. He smiled, to tell Miguel tonight. He will lose his mind. Lydia gathered her papers in response to Mr. Musk's statement that the boy is a huge fan. Hector agreed that it was the largest. What precisely is Elon planning, though? Are you able to hint me? Lydia gave a headshake. I really can't. However, in all the years I've worked for Mr. Musk, I have never witnessed him get so personally involved in something like this. Elon sat in a conference room with engineers and designers at Tesla's headquarters in the meantime. The screens around them were covered with computer models and blueprints. Elon was saying that we had to make this unique. Not merely a typical model. 3. Something special. One engineer pointed out that the changes you're requesting aren't part of our standard production line. Months may pass. Elon said firmly, we don't have months. In 8 weeks, the boy's birthday is coming up, and his grandfather might not be there. He left the sentence hanging. He didn't have to. The group glanced at their CEO, then back at each other. The lead engineer assured us that we would make it happen. Elon gave a nod. After that, he took out his phone and examined a picture. It wasn't of Miguel or Hector. An old man standing beside a young boy was depicted in an old black and white photograph. Many years ago, the boy was Elon himself. His grandfather was the man. Elon muttered that there are some things that are more significant than business. Hector and his family in Boston exchanged excited phone calls in the weeks following Lydia's visit. Miguel found it hard to believe that he would actually meet Elon Musk. He called his grandfather every night with fresh inquiries concerning the impending trip to Iquique. "Grandpa, do you think he'll let me see the rockets?" One night Miguel inquired. "Or the factory that makes solar panels?" "I don't know, Mijo," Hector laughed. "However, I have no doubt that whatever Mr. Musk has in store will be fantastic." Hector cherished these calls. They provided him with courage and motivation to fight on. His body, however, had other ideas. 3 weeks prior to the scheduled trip, Hector woke up one morning feeling more exhausted than normal. His chest ached more, and he had to fight to breathe. The room whirled around as he attempted to get out of bed. His phone fell from his feeble fingers and clattered to the floor as he reached for it on the nightstand. As though it were emanating from the end of a long tunnel, the sound seemed distant. Then everything turned dark. Hector had lived next door to Ruth Jackson for 15 years. They always had the same morning routine. They would sit on his porch and watch the neighborhood come alive as she brought over fresh coffee. She knew something wasn't right when he didn't answer his door that morning. She knocked harder and called, "Hector." She used the extra key he had given her for emergencies when there was still no response. He was barely conscious when she found him on the bedroom floor. "Hold on," she muttered, having already called 911. "Hector, just wait." It took 6 minutes for the ambulance to arrive. Ruth picked up Hector's phone off the ground as the paramedics loaded him onto the stretcher. She came across a call with the label Lydia, Tesla while scrolling through his recent calls. Doctors hurried Hector through a battery of tests at the hospital. Ruth held his battered flip phone while he sat in the waiting area. She hesitated for a second before pressing Lydia's number's call button. "Ramirez, Mr. Is everything all right?" The second ring went to Lydia. "Hector isn't here," Ruth clarified. "I'm Ruth Jackson, his neighbor. Hector is in the medical facility. This morning, he passed out." A moment of silence fell. "Which medical facility?" Lydia reached Phoenix General Hospital in less than an hour. In the waiting area, she discovered Ruth holding a chilly coffee cup in her hands. "Did they say anything?" Lydia inquired. Ruth gave a headshake. "He's stable for the time being. They're sprinting. Additional tests." Chen, Ms. A white-coated doctor walked toward them. "Mr. Ramirez has designated you as his emergency contact." Lydia got up. "What's up with him?" "Stable," the doctor said candidly, "but the cancer has spread more quickly than we anticipated. We discovered new growth in his liver, and the tumors in his lungs have gotten much bigger." "How does his prognosis change as a result?" Even though Lydia already knew the answer, she still asked. The physician paused. "Weeks instead of months, though it's hard to say for sure. He won't make it to August, in my opinion." Ruth gave a little cry. With a calm but pallid face, Lydia touched the elderly woman's shoulder. "Is he visible to us?" she inquired. When they entered Hector's room, he was awake, but his skin was gray and his eyes were sunken. When he saw them, he tried to smile a little. "Ruth," he mumbled. "My tomatoes will need you to water them." Ruth laughed. "Is that what you're worried about? Your tomatoes?" "They won an award," Hector said weakly, then he turned to look at Lydia. "I'm not going to California, am I?" Lydia stepped closer to his bed. Let's not jump to conclusions. You are receiving the best care. Hector shook his head slightly. I know how this feels. The doctors didn't have to tell me. His voice quivered. Miguel is going to be so disappointed. Lydia stepped out into the hallway and said, "Let me make a call." She took out her phone and called Elon directly. What is wrong? Elon inquired immediately. He could tell by her voice that something had happened. Lydia described the situation. The doctors believe he won't make it to August. There was silence on the other end. Then we need to advance the timeline. Lydia reminded him that everything wasn't ready. You wanted Miguel's car modified, with special features. We'll work around the clock, Elon interrupted. Tell the team that I want updates every 6 hours, and contact Dr. Harrison at the research center. We also need to talk about accelerating the other project. Is this wise? It has not been fully tested. We're out of options, Lydia. Elon's voice was firm. Make it happen, and arrange for Hector to be transported here as soon as he is stable enough to travel. Private medical flight with full care team on board. What? What about his family in Boston? Get them here today. Lydia returned to Hector's room, where he was drifting in and out of sleep. The machines around him beeped steadily, monitoring his failing heart. She said softly, Hector, Mr. Musk wants to move everything up. We will fly you to California as soon as you are able to travel. Your daughter and grandson, too. Hector's eyes opened, but everything wasn't ready. He explained it was for Miguel's birthday. Lydia smiled softly as she explained that plans change. Certain things are more important than perfect timing. That evening, as Hector was sleeping, his phone lit up with a video call. Ruth, who had stayed by his bedside, carefully held the phone so he could see it. Mr. Ramirez? Elon's face appeared on the smaller screen. How do you feel? Hector attempted to sit up straighter. I've been better, he admitted with a weak smile. I hear the doctors are pessimistic, Elon said. They're simply being realistic. Well, I need you to fight for a little longer, Elon said. What we're building for Miguel isn't quite ready yet, but it will be soon. Please hold on. Hector's eyes welled up with tears, not out of pain or fear, but because he was moved by the billionaire's genuine concern. I will try, he promised. That is all I am asking, Elon responded. Just a little more, Mr. Ramirez. For Miguel. After the call ended, Hector closed his eyes. The pain was constant now, like a fire inside his chest. But for the first time that day, he felt something more powerful than the pain. Determination. The following morning, Hector surprised his doctors by sitting up in bed and asking for breakfast. When Dr. Phillips came to check on him, Hector made a simple request. I need to leave the hospital, he stated firmly. Dr. Phillips frowned. Mr. Ramirez, your condition is serious. I strongly advise against this. Hector responded, I understand, but I have an important appointment. Can you give me medication for the trip? Something stronger to relieve the pain? The doctor crossed his arms. Where are you planning to go? Hector explained that he was traveling to California to meet a friend. Dr. Phillips shook his head. Absolutely not. Commercial air travel would be too stressful on your body. Your lungs are unable to handle the pressure changes. It will not be a commercial flight, a voice said from the doorway. They turned to see Lydia standing there, alongside a man dressed in a crisp white uniform. This is Tomas Rivera. Lydia introduced the man. He is a specialized flight nurse who will accompany Mr. Ramirez to California aboard a private medical jet outfitted with all necessary equipment. Dr. Phillips appeared surprised, but remained concerned. Even with medical assistance, the journey carries serious risks. Tomas stepped forward. Doctor, I reviewed Mr. Ramirez's charts. We have everything we need to monitor and stabilize him throughout the flight. The cabin will be pressurized especially for his condition. The doctor hesitated before turning to Hector. This goes against my medical advice. I know, Hector replied quietly. However, some things are worth the risk. Dr. Phillips eventually agreed to discharge Hector with a powerful pain medication regimen after much discussion and paperwork, which released the hospital from liability. Ruth arrived just as they were about to leave, carrying a small suitcase. I packed your favorite sweater, she explained, setting the suitcase on a chair. And your photo album. I thought you'd like it. Hector reached for her hand. Thank you, Ruth, for everything. Don't get all sappy on me right now, Ruth said, blinking back tears. You'll be back before you realize it. They both knew it wasn't true, but neither said anything. At noon, Hector was being carefully loaded into a sleek ambulance. The hospital staff watched in amazement as the vehicle drove away, not to another medical facility, but to a private airfield outside Phoenix. At the airport, a gleaming white jet waited on the runway. Its side featured no airline logos, just a simple Tesla emblem near the tail. A medical team was ready at the bottom of the stairs. Lydia smiled as the ambulance doors opened, saying, "Your chariot awaits." Hector stared at the plane in awe. All this for an elderly bus driver? She corrected him, all this for a man who inspired the world's busiest CEO to drop everything. The transfer from ambulance to plane was carried out with extreme care. Inside, the jet did not resemble a typical passenger aircraft. It had been converted into a flying medical suite, complete with a hospital bed fixed to the floor, monitoring equipment, and even a small pharmacy station. Thomas assisted Hector in getting settled, connecting him to the monitors and administering his pain medication. The flight will last about an hour and a half, he said. I'll be right here the entire time. What about my neighbor Ruth? Hector inquired, suddenly concerned. Lydia assured him that she would be joining him, pointing to another section of the plane where Ruth had already been shown to a comfortable seat. Mr. Musk believed you might want a familiar face around. Hector closed his eyes and thought about Miguel as the plane's engines began to rev up. The boy was unaware that his grandfather was flying to California. According to Lydia, Valeria and Miguel had already left Boston on their own flight, which Elon had also arranged. What exactly did Elon tell them? Hector had asked before. Lydia had explained that you simply wanted to surprise Miguel with something special and that you were unable to travel to Boston due to illness. They believe they are going to visit you in the hospital in California. As the jet accelerated down the runway, Hector experienced a moment of panic. What if he doesn't make it? What if all of this effort was for nothing? Thomas appeared to read his thoughts. Your vital signs are normal, Mr. Ramirez, he said, checking the monitors. Try to relax. Thousands of miles away, Valeria Ramirez sat next to her son on another private jet heading west. Miguel pressed his face against the window, watching the clouds pass beneath them. Mom, is Grandpa really sick? He inquired suddenly. Valeria hesitated. Yes, honey, you know he is. Is he getting worse? Is that why we're going to California instead of him coming here? Valeria chose her words carefully. Your grandfather loves you very much. He wanted to give you something special and couldn't wait any longer. Miguel nodded, his youthful expression serious. I've been reading about cancer treatments, he explained. There are some very promising new therapies. I have been saving the articles to show Grandpa. Valeria felt her heart break just a little. Her son was always trying to fix things, and he believed that knowledge was power. She drew him closer and kissed the top of his head. She whispered, "You are a good grandson." Meanwhile, at Tesla's headquarters in California, Elon was in charge of final preparations. He hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours, between working on Miguel's special project and making urgent calls to medical researchers. His lead engineer reported that the car was ready. We completed the custom work this morning. Elon asked that the energy package, which is currently being loaded onto trucks, be set up at the demonstration area within 3 hours. Elon nodded while checking his watch. Hector's plane arrives in 90 minutes, Valeria and Miguel arrive an hour later. The engineer hesitated, insisting that everything be perfect. "Sir, may I ask why this is so important to you? I mean, we've never tried anything like this before." Elon was silent for a moment. "Have you ever met someone who reminded you of what is truly important? Not the stock price, production numbers, or the next innovation, but the fundamental reasons why we do this in the first place." The engineer waited, sensing that there was more. "When I was 10, Elon continued, my grandfather got sick. He lived in South Africa, while I was in Canada. It was too late for my mother to arrange our visit. He looked out the window onto the bustling factory floor below. Some regrets stick with you forever." Back on the medical jet, Hector's condition remained stable as they descended into California. The pain medication made him drowsy, but he fought to stay awake, looking out the window as the landscape grew closer. "Almost there," Thomas said, checking his vital signs once more. The landing went smoothly, with the pilots taking extra care to avoid any jarring movements. When the door finally opened, Hector was surprised to see a familiar figure standing on the tarmac, hands in pockets and waiting. Elon Musk himself had arrived to meet the plane. As the medical team carefully moved Hector's stretcher down the ramp, Elon stepped forward. "You made it, Mr. Ramirez," he said, guiding Hector into the wheelchair. "And just on time." Hector looked up at the man who had altered the course of his last days. "I couldn't disappoint you, Miguel," he explained simply. Elon smiled, a genuine smile that filled his eyes. "Neither could I." A sleek black SUV was waiting for them, specially modified to fit Hector's wheelchair. As Thomas and the medical team assisted him inside, Elon explained the situation. "We have reserved the entire top floor of the Coastal View Hotel for you and your family," he explained. "It's only 15 minutes away and features a medical suite where Thomas can continue to monitor you." Hector nodded, fighting back the wave of exhaustion that was washing over him. The journey, while carefully planned, had taken its toll. "When will Valeria and Miguel arrive?" "Their plane will arrive in about an hour," Elon replied, checking his phone. "They will come straight to the hotel. Everything has been arranged." The ride to the hotel went smoothly, with Elon pointing out landmarks along the way. Hector attempted to remain engaged, but his eyes kept closing despite his efforts. Thomas suggested that Hector rest before they arrived, noticing his struggle. Hector wanted to protest, but his pain medication was making it impossible to stay awake. He agreed for a short while. A team of hotel staff was waiting for them at a private entrance. The top level had been transformed. One suite was converted into a comfortable medical room. The others prepared for Valeria, Miguel, and Ruth. Hector barely noticed the luxurious surroundings as Thomas assisted him into the hospital bed. He fell asleep within moments. He awoke to the sound of quiet voices. He opened his eyes to see Thomas and Lydia speaking quietly near the door. Sunlight streamed through the windows, creating long afternoon shadows. "What time is it?" Hector asked, his voice rough from sleep. They both turned, startled to see him awake. Lydia approached his bed shortly after 4 o'clock. "How do you feel?" Hector admitted that he felt as if he had been hit by a truck. "So, more importantly, are they here?" A knock on the door interrupted Lydia's response. She smiled. "Why don't you see it for yourself?" The door slowly opened, and a woman with dark hair pulled back into a ponytail peered inside. When she saw him, her eyes widened in the same way that Hector's did. "Dad?" Valeria rushed to his bedside and took his hand in hers. "Oh, Dad," Hector whispered, Mija, while drinking in front of his daughter. "You seem tired." She laughed through her tears. "That is what you notice? I flew across the country because you were sick, and you said I looked tired. Where is Miguel?" Hector inquired, attempting to see past her to the door. Valeria turned and beckoned. "Come inside, honey. Grandpa is awake." A boy appeared in the doorway and hesitated before entering. He had grown taller and looked older in the face since Hector last saw him at Christmas. He wore a faded Science Museum t-shirt and held a tablet computer to his chest as a shield. "Miguel," Hector called softly. "Come here, Mijo." The boy approached slowly, his eyes taking in the medical equipment around the bed, including the 4 in his grandfather's arm and the oxygen tube in his nose. When he got to the bedside, he stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. "It's fine," Hector said, opening his arms. "I will not break." That is all it took. Miguel practically fell forward, wrapping his arms around his grandfather in a careful yet fierce hug. Hector gripped him tightly, ignoring the pain the embrace caused. "I missed you, grandfather." Miguel mumbled into Hector's chest. "I missed you too, Mijo. There's so much." When Miguel finally pulled back, his eyes were wet, but he quickly wiped them with his sleeve. "Mom said you had a surprise for me, but you should be resting instead of worrying about surprises." "Ah, but this is a special surprise," Hector said, tapping Miguel's nose as he used to do when the boy was younger. "I've been planning this for months." "What is it?" Miguel couldn't resist asking, his curiosity temporarily overcoming his concern. Hector smiled mysteriously. "You'll need to wait until tomorrow to find out." Miguel seemed to want to protest, but Valeria placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your grandfather needs to rest now. We can return after dinner." Lydia spoke up from where she had been quietly waiting near the wall. "Mr. Musk was hoping to meet Miguel this evening, if that is okay." Miguel's head whipped around so quickly that Hector was concerned he might injure himself. "Elon Musk? Is that Elon Musk?" Lydia smiled as she confirmed this. "He is the one who set everything up." Miguel returned to his grandfather, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Grandfather, how do you know Elon Musk?" "It's a long story," Hector said, "and Mr. Musk might tell you himself tonight." Miguel appeared to be about to explode with questions, but Valeria firmly directed him toward the door. "Let's give Grandpa a rest. You can shower and change before meeting with Mr. Musk." As they left, Hector could hear Miguel's excited voice in the corridor. "Mom, have you heard that? Elon Musk? The guy who makes Teslas and launches rockets into space." The remainder of the afternoon passed quietly. Tomas helped Hector eat a light meal and take his medication. Ruth came by to tell him about her luxurious suite and the view of the Pacific Ocean from her window. "I never expected to stay in a place like this," she said, settling into the chair next to his bed. "Hector Ramirez, you have some fancy friends now." Hector replied, "Just one," with a tired smile. Around 7 o'clock, there was another knock on the door. Lydia entered, followed by Elon Musk, who was dressed casually in jeans and a dark blazer. "Do you feel better after some rest?" Elon asked as he approached the bed. "Much," Hector nodded. "Thank you for all you have done." Elon waved away the gratitude. "Has your family arrived safely?" "Yes. Miguel cannot wait to meet you." "That's why I'm here," Elon explained. "I thought I'd take him out to dinner and get to know him better before the big surprise tomorrow." "He'll be over the moon," Hector said. "Don't tell him everything just yet. I want to see his expression when he sees it for the first time." Elon promised, "My lips are sealed." Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small black box. "One more thing. I had this made for you." Hector opened the box and found a watch with the Tesla logo on the face. "But this wasn't just a watch. It tracks your vital signs," Elon explained. "Heart rate, blood oxygenation, and temperature. Thomas will have the companion app on his phone. If anything changes, he'll know right away." Hector looked at the sleek device. "That is amazing. We're testing them on patients with chronic conditions," Elon said. "You are one of our first users." After Elon left to meet Miguel, Hector held the watch in his palm, amazed by its weight and design. Even now, when his life was measured in days rather than years, he was helping to test something that could benefit others in the future. That night, when Miguel arrived to say goodnight, he could barely contain his excitement. Grandpa is so cool. He understands everything about rockets, electric cars, and solar energy. And he said I asked some really good questions. Hector smiled, cherishing the brightness in his grandson's eyes. What were you talking about? Everything. He told me that you met at the Tesla showroom and wanted to see one of the cars because of me. Miguel sat at the edge of the bed. He described you as one of the bravest people he's ever met. Has he now? Hector raised his eyebrow. Yeah. And tomorrow, he's taking us to see something special. He wouldn't say what it was, but he said it would forever change my perspective on clean energy. Miguel leaned forward, conspiratorially. I believe it could be a new type of solar panel or even a fusion reactor. Hector laughed, then winced as the movement tugged on his chest. We will find out tomorrow, Mijo. As Miguel hugged him goodnight, Hector held on for a little longer than usual, inhaling the scent of his grandson's hair and feeling the warmth of his small body. He knew that certain moments needed to be remembered forever. The morning began with a gentle knock on the door. Thomas arrived with Hector's medicine and a light breakfast. The nurse smiled as he examined the vital signs on the monitors and the new Tesla watch. Your numbers look good today, Mr. Ramirez, he said, adjusting the oxygen flow. How is the pain? Hector replied, manageable, but the tightness in his chest told him otherwise. Today was not about pain. Today was about Miguel. Another knock followed an hour later, after Thomas had assisted him in changing into new clothes. This time it was Lydia. Good morning, Mr. Ramirez. She greeted him cheerfully. Are you prepared for today? As prepared as I'll ever be, Hector said, settling into the wheelchair Thomas had prepared. Is everyone else awake? They are waiting in the lobby, Lydia confirmed. Mr. Musk is already present at the facility, ensuring that everything is in order. The elevator ride down to the lobby appeared to take forever. When the doors finally opened, Hector noticed Miguel pacing excitedly, while Valeria and Ruth sat nearby drinking coffee. Grandpa, Miguel dashed over. Are you feeling better now? Much better, Hector lied smoothly, especially now that I'm spending the day with you. Outside, a sleek Model X was waiting for them. The driver, a young woman dressed in a Tesla uniform, greeted them warmly and assisted Thomas in loading Hector's wheelchair into the specially modified vehicle. Where are we going? Miguel inquired as they drove away from the hotel. You'll see, Hector said with a wink. They drove north along the coast, then inland to a sprawling complex of modern buildings. As they approached, Miguel pressed his face against the window. Is that the Tesla headquarters? He gasped. Part of it, the driver confirmed. We're going to a special section that isn't usually open to visitors. They went through several security checkpoints, and the guards nodded respectfully as they checked their clearance. Finally, they approached a building with a large, authorized personnel-only sign on the door. Elon Musk stood in front, waiting for them. Good morning, he said as they exited the car. I hope everybody slept well. Miguel was literally vibrating with excitement. Yes, sir, Mr. Musk. Please call me Elon, he said, shaking the boy's hand. Then he turned to Hector. How do you feel today? Hector responded with a tired smile, anticipating the big reveal. Elon nodded, understanding what was not said. Hector was fighting through pain to be here for this moment. He turned to address the entire group. What you're about to see is something special we've been working on, he said. Hector told me about Miguel's enthusiasm for sustainable energy in Tesla vehicles. That level of commitment to our planet's future should be encouraged, especially among young people. Miguel looked at his grandfather, surprised. Hector reached out to squeeze his hand. Before we go in, Elon explained, I want you to know that everything you see today was inspired by a conversation I had with your grandfather in a Tesla showroom. He reminded me why I founded this company in the first place. Elon turned and put his hand on a scanner beside the door. There was a beep, and the heavy doors started to slide open. Miguel, Elon explained, your grandfather wanted to give you something special for your birthday. This comes from both of us. As the doors opened completely, bright lights illuminated what was inside. Miguel took a few steps forward before coming to a halt, his mouth wide open in shock. In the center of the vast room sat a brand new Tesla Model 3, its metallic blue paint gleaming under the lights. However, this was not just any Model 3. Along the sides, custom detailing spell out Miguel in an electric green design that made the letters appear to be pulsing with energy. Surrounding the car was a complex display of solar panels, battery storage systems, and interactive screens that displayed renewable energy information. The entire setup resembled a high-tech science museum exhibit, with the Tesla as the focal point. "Is this for me?" Miguel whispered, unable to believe what he was witnessing. "That's only the beginning," Elon said, leading them into the room. "This is Miguel's clean energy package." As they moved deeper into the space, Elon explained each component. "The car has been specially modified with accessibility features, allowing your grandfather to easily enter and exit. Your Boston home will be energy independent thanks to the installation of solar panels and a home battery system." Miguel moved slowly around the car, touching its surface with reverent fingers. "But I can't drive yet," he explained, looking puzzled but delighted. "Your mother will be the official owner until you are old enough," Elon explained. "But, yes, one day this will be your vehicle." Valeria stood speechless, hand over her mouth. Ruth wiped the tears from her eyes. "There's more," Elon explained, directing them to an interactive display. "This educational system will be set up at your home. It monitors energy production, consumption, and carbon offsets. You can keep track of everything using your computer or phone." Miguel's eyes were wide as saucers as he examined the touchscreen. "This is amazing," Elon smiled, clearly pleased with the boy's reaction. Then he looked at Hector, who was watching his grandson through tears. Elon suggested that we show him how it drives. Tomas assisted Hector from his wheelchair to the passenger seat of the Tesla, ensuring that his oxygen tank was secure. The interior had been modified with special handles and supports to accommodate someone with limited mobility. Miguel climbed into the back seat, running his hands over the premium leather and admiring the large touchscreen. Elon got into the driver's seat and pressed the start button. The car started silently. "This isn't your typical test drive," Elon explained as they drove out of the building. "We've created a special course to demonstrate the car's capabilities." The course led them through Tesla's campus, where employees waved and smiled as they passed. At one point, they entered a demonstration area where the car's automated driving features were demonstrated, with the vehicle navigating obstacles without assistance. Any input from Elon Miguel raised numerous questions, which Elon patiently and thoroughly answered. Throughout the journey, Hector remained silent, watching his grandson's happiness and occasionally meeting Elon's gaze in the rearview mirror with silent gratitude. When they returned to the building, a surprise lunch had been prepared. As they ate, Elon explained more about the gift. He told Miguel that everything was his, including the car, the solar system, and the educational package. "But there is something else. We have created a special education fund for you. When you're ready for college, it'll be there to help you with your studies in renewable energy, engineering, or whatever field you choose." Valeria, who had been overcome with silence until now, had finally found her voice. "Hello, Mr. Musk. I'm not sure what to say. Why would you do all of this for us? We are strangers." Elon was silent for a moment, gazing at Hector. "Your father reminded me of someone significant in my life. Sometimes meeting the right person at the right time can make all the difference." After lunch, while Miguel explored the interactive displays with an engineer assigned as his guide, Elon led Hector to a quiet corner of the room. "There's something else," Elon said quietly. "Something I haven't shared with the others yet." Hector looked at him inquisitively. "Remember the night we talked in the hotel? Which box did I give you?" Hector nodded. "The watch. That wasn't it." Elon explained that he was referring to the real gift. He took out his phone and showed Hector something on its screen. "This is..." Hector examined the information, his expression ranging from confusion to disbelief. "Is this real?" he inquired, his tone barely above a whisper. "Yes," Elon nodded. "However, I wanted to wait until after today to discuss it with you and your family." This was Miguel's moment. Hector looked across the room at his grandson, who was laughing as the engineer demonstrated how the car's summon feature worked. Then he turned back to Elon. "Thank you," he replied simply. "Not just today, but for giving me hope." Elon gently squeezed his shoulder. "Hope is only the beginning." Miguel could not stop talking later that afternoon, as they were about to leave. About everything he had witnessed and learned. He switched from topic to topic. The car accelerates. Solar panel efficiency. Battery technology. And Elon said I could return to the factory. He added, "I can see the rocket factory too. Whenever we have time." Miguel was ecstatic. Hector studied him, noting every smile, gesture, and glint of excitement in his eyes. In all his years, he had never seen his grandson happier. As they approached the exit, Miguel came to a halt and dashed back to where Elon was speaking with some engineers. Hector watched as his grandson gave the billionaire a spontaneous hug. Elon, surprised, returned the embrace with a genuine smile. Miguel then ran back to his grandfather's side. "This is the best day ever, Grandpa," he said, taking Hector's hand. "Yes, Mijo," Hector agreed, his heart full. "It certainly is." As the group was about to leave, Elon approached Hector's wheelchair. He said quietly, "If you are not too tired, I'd like to show you something else." "It's just you." Hector nodded, curious. "Valeria," he called to his daughter. "Mr. Musk wants to show me something. Why don't you bring Miguel back to the hotel for rest? I will join you later." Valeria seemed concerned. "Are you sure, Father? You have had a long day already." "Tomas will be with me," Hector assured her, gesturing to the nurse standing nearby. "I will be fine." After the others had left, Elon took Hector and Tomas to a different area of the complex. They entered a quieter building with a sign reading Advanced Research Division. "What is this place?" Hector inquired as they passed through security. Elon responded that it was a rare opportunity to see a glimpse of the future. They entered a large laboratory where scientists in white coats worked on advanced computer stations. In the center of the room, there was a sealed glass chamber with equipment Hector did not recognize. A woman wearing a lab coat approached them. She greeted Mr. Musk with a nod before turning to Hector. "You must be Mr. Ramirez." "I am Dr. Harrison." Elon explained that Dr. Harrison leads our medical research division. Hector appeared confused. "Does Tesla do medical research?" "Not officially," Elon replied with a small smile. "This is a separate project that I have funded personally. It is relatively unknown." Dr. Harrison led them into a quiet conference room with digital scans on the walls. Hector immediately recognized them as medical images of lungs, tissues, and cellular structures. Mr. Ramirez and Dr. Harrison began. "Elon informed me of your condition, stage 4 lung cancer that has spread to your liver, correct?" Hector nodded, suddenly understanding. Elon confirmed that the device in the box, which you mentioned as the real gift, is an experimental treatment. Dr. Harrison's team has been working on a targeted therapy that combines nanotechnology with immunotherapy. The preliminary findings have been promising. Dr. Harrison brought up additional images on the screen. Traditional cancer treatments, such as chemotherapy, target all fast-growing cells, resulting in severe side effects. Our approach is different. She explained the technology in layman's terms, describing how the nanobots would be programmed to specifically identify cancer cells and deliver medication directly to tumors while leaving healthy tissue alone. She cautioned that the treatment was still experimental. "We have had success in the lab and with animal models, but we are only now beginning human trials. There are risks, and I cannot promise that it will work." Hector looked at the images and then at Elon. Why me? Surely, there are others who require this and could benefit more. Elon sat across from him. When I met you in that showroom, I noticed something unusual, a man who was not thinking about himself, even when facing death. You were concerned with your grandson's happiness and the legacy you wanted to leave. He paused, selecting his words carefully. We need people like that during these trials. People with courage, who understand that even if the treatment does not save them, the information we gather may save countless others in the future. Hector considered it. And if it doesn't work for me, you'll have spent your final days advancing a technology that has the potential to save millions, Dr. Harrison said gently. But if it works, even partially, I may have. Hector finished after spending more time with Miguel. The thought lingered in the air between them. More time is usually something that money cannot buy. Hector finally said, I'll think about it and discuss it with Valeria. Of course, Elon agreed. Dr. Harrison will give you all the information you need. Take your time. As they left the research facility, the California sun was setting, illuminating the sky in brilliant orange and pink. Hector remained quiet, processing everything he had learned. One more stop, Elon said as they approached the car, if you're up for it. They drove to a small, private beach. Tomas assisted Hector from the car to his wheelchair, ensuring that his oxygen tank was secure. Elon led them down a ramp to where sand and water met. For a while, they sat in silence, watching the waves come in and out. The rhythmic sound of the ocean was soothing and almost hypnotic. What Miguel received today, Elon finally stated, is more than just a car or solar panels. Hector nodded. It is a future and a purpose. Exactly. The watch I gave you monitors vital signs, but it also collects data on how your body reacts to stress, medication, and rest. Whether or not you choose to try the experimental treatment, this data contributes to our research. Hector gazed down at the sleek device on his wrist. So I'm already contributing just by wearing it? Yes, everything we learn brings us one step closer to better treatments for a variety of diseases, not just cancer. They saw a seagull dive into the water and come up with a small fish. Elon continued, when I was building my first companies, everyone thought I was insane. Electric vehicles would never be a viable alternative to gasoline. Private space exploration was impossible. Solar energy cannot power the entire world. He smiled lightly, but here we are. You proved them wrong, Hector stated. Some battles take longer than others, Elon explained. Cancer is one of the most difficult, but I believe we can win with the support of people like you. Hector made his decision as the sun disappeared below the horizon. I'll do it, he said quietly. Not just to spend more time with Miguel, which would be wonderful, but also to assist others who may be going through the same thing I am. Elon reached over and put his hand on Hector's shoulder. Thank you. Back at the hotel, Hector discovered Miguel waiting eagerly, full of stories about what he'd seen that day. As his grandson enthusiastically described the Tesla's features to Ruth for the 12th time, Hector caught Valeria's eye and motioned for her to join him on the balcony. Under the stars, Hector told his daughter about Dr. Harrison, the experimental treatment, and his decision to take part. Dad, are you certain? Valeria inquired, her face displaying worry. I'll die knowing I tried everything, Hector said softly, and maybe helped others along the way if it doesn't work. Valeria dried her eyes. And if it works, Hector glanced through the glass doors at Miguel, who was using his hands to demonstrate the Tesla's self-parking capability. I get to see that smile for a little while longer after that. Hector sat by himself on the balcony later that evening after everyone else had gone to bed. His heart felt lighter than it had in months, but his chest ached. More tests, more conversations with doctors, and the start of an uncertain journey would all be part of tomorrow. But he had this moment for tonight. He will always remember his grandson's happiness, the stars above, and the distant sound of the ocean. It was sufficient. It wasn't until he heard a gentle knock on the balcony door that Hector realized he had fallen asleep. It was just past midnight, according to his watch's digital display. Ramirez, Mr. A voice called softly. Are you still awake? Hector blinked the sleep haze away. Mr. Musk? Elon carefully closed the glass door behind him as he stepped out onto the balcony. He appeared more like a regular person than one of the wealthiest men in the world because he was dressed simply in jeans and a black t-shirt. Elon explained, grabbing the chair across from Hector, I couldn't sleep. I thought you might also be awake when I noticed the light outside. Hector remarked, just enjoying the night. Elon nodded, gazing up at the stars, it's peaceful. It brings back memories of my early years spent in South Africa. Far away from the lights of the cities, we could see the Milky Way stretching across the sky. They sat in pleasant silence for a few minutes, two men thinking about the vast cosmos above them. How do you feel? At last, Elon inquired. I mean, tomorrow. The therapy. Hector inhaled deeply, experiencing the well-known constriction in his chest. Feeling anxious, optimistic, thankful? Elon's eyebrow went up. The majority of people in your situation would be upset and wonder, why me? Hector acknowledged that when he first received the diagnosis, he did that. It doesn't help, though. Such questions are not answered by the universe. His oxygen tube had slipped a little, so he adjusted it. In any case, my life has been good. Good, but not as significant or exciting as yours. Elon seemed genuinely interested and said, tell me about it. Despite his startled expression, Hector started talking. As the son of immigrants who worked in the fields, he told Elon about his upbringing in a small Arizonan town. About how, at the age of 18, he met his wife, Elena, at a community dance. Regarding his 40 years of bus driving and his observations of the city's development and transformation through his windshield. Hector muttered that Elena had passed away 5 years prior. Heart attack. At least it's quick. She was not harmed. I apologize, Elon said. We were together for 52 years. Valeria, one daughter. Miguel was given to us by her. The thought of his grandson made Hector smile. For a bus driver, it's not bad, is it? Elon remained silent for a while. Do you know what I believe? At last, he spoke. Driving a bus for 40 years, getting people to their destinations safely, day after day, is what I believe. That's impressive. This was waved away by Hector. It was only a job. No, Elon gave a headshake. A life of service is what it is. Dependable, consistent service to your community. Over those years, how many thousands of people did you assist? People traveling to hospitals, schools, and places of employment. That was not how Hector had ever considered it. I build rockets and cars, Elon added. It brings me a lot of attention. Ultimately, though, we're both merely attempting to assist others in reaching their destinations. Hector laughed at the comparison and then coughed. From the glass next to him, he sipped some water. May I ask you a question? When the coughing stopped, Hector spoke. Something private. Elon gave a nod. What fears do you have? A man with everything like you. Elon pondered the question while gazing out at the gloomy ocean. At last he said, failure. Not a failure on a personal level. I have survived a lot of that. However, failing at the big things, the existential issues, climate change, and evolving into a multiplanetary species. He turned to face Hector again. I fear disappointing the future. Children like Miguel are depending on us to fix the issues we've caused. That's a big load to bear, Hector said. It is, Elon said. However, it's also what motivates me to get out of bed each morning. Hector considered this. He whispered, you know what I'm afraid of, being overlooked. I'm not concerned about that at all. Miguel, though. He's very young. Will he remember me in 10 or 20 years? Or simply the ailing elderly man in his faded pictures? Elon bent over. In light of what I witnessed today? He'll recall. Because of what you showed him, not just the car or the presents. love, bravery, and selflessness. They leave marks. The topic of conversation changed to more light-hearted subjects at last. Generations. Elon shared tales of his early days of starting businesses, including his errors and near misses. Hector told amusing stories about his time working as a bus driver. The unexpected friendships, the lost things, and the odd passengers. Hector noticed his own weariness as the night drew on. Elon saw the drooping of his eyelids. He stood and said, "Should let you rest." "Thank you for everything, for tonight," Hector said. Elon gave a nod. "I'll see you at the medical center tomorrow." He started to leave but stopped. "Oh, I nearly forgot." He gave it to Hector after taking a tiny box out of his pocket. "It's for you." That night, I mentioned the actual gift. I had the experimental idea. Confused, Hector said that the true gift was treatment. Elon said that was part of it. "However, this is a different matter, a personal matter. But don't open it just yet. It's not the right time." Hector wondered what might be inside the little wooden box as he looked down at it. "When ought I to open it?" Elon said cryptically, "You'll know." Hector was helped to his feet by him. "Come on, let's go to bed. It's a significant day tomorrow." Thomas assisted Hector in getting ready for bed after Elon left. Hector continued to stare at the wooden box on his nightstand while the nurse refilled his prescription. "Do you not intend to open it?" Observing his interest, Thomas inquired. "Well," Hector said, "not yet. The time isn't right, according to Mr. Musk." His weary body was appreciative of the soft mattress as he climbed into bed. Outside, the ocean's never-ending wave rhythm against the coast persisted. The events of the day, Miguel's happiness, Valeria's tears, the promise of the experimental treatment, and the enigmatic box filled Hector's mind. One thought was clear in his mind as sleep took hold of him. He had already been given the best present imaginable, regardless of what happened tomorrow, whether the treatment was successful or not, or if he had weeks, months, or years left. He had witnessed the development of his grandson's future. He had contributed a little to brightening that future. And in the most unlikely of places, he had managed to find a friend in spite of everything. The box on Hector's nightstand, its polished wood gleaming in the moonlight from the window, was the last thing he saw before falling asleep. He was certain that whatever was inside would have significance. It would serve some sort of purpose, just like everything Elon Musk did. Hector closed his eyes and slept without ending related dreams for the first time since his diagnosis. Rather, he had dreams about new beginnings. Golden California sunshine poured through the windows as morning broke. Hector felt stronger than he had in weeks when he woke up. He couldn't tell if it was the new drugs Thomas had prescribed or just the renewed sense of purpose. But he appreciated it. Lydia came in after breakfast with the news that Dr. Harrison was prepared to start the experimental treatment the next day. She clarified that they have a few more tests to run today. Tomorrow morning, the actual procedure will begin. After giving a nod, Hector made an unexpected request. "I want to take Miguel for a ride in his brand new Tesla first. Only the two of us." Valeria had a worried expression. "Is that a good idea, Dad? What if something occurs?" "Thomas will follow us in another car because of this," Hector said, having already considered the situation. "Additionally, the watch will keep an eye on everything. This is important to me, Mija, please." Elon personally gave his approval to the plan after some deliberation. He had Thomas trained on emergency protocols and made arrangements for Miguel's new Tesla to be delivered to the hotel. Miguel was giddy with anticipation when he learned about the drive. "Grandpa, really? Only us?" "Just us," Hector said, grinning at his grandson's happiness. "But I'll need your assistance to understand how all the controls operate." They were sitting in the shiny blue Tesla an hour later. With his oxygen tank fastened behind him, Hector sits in the passenger seat. Miguel was bouncing with anticipation while Thomas completed the last checks. "Remember, Mr. Ramirez, stop right away if you're uncomfortable," Thomas said. The entire time, I'll be right behind you. After giving a nod, Hector faced Miguel. Co-pilot, are you ready? Miguel smiled and put the car in drive cautiously as he had been instructed. Thomas followed in a separate Tesla at a noticeable distance as the Tesla quietly sailed out of the hotel. They would travel along the coast on a picturesque route that Lydia had programmed into the navigation system. Miguel initially drove with great concentration, his tiny hands gripping the steering wheel firmly as he made his way through the silent hotel grounds. But when they got to the coastal highway, he unwinded and was astounded by how well the car handled. He glanced over and said, "Grandpa, this is incredible. The car seems to understand my intentions before I do." Hector said, "That's good engineering. Something you could do if you continue to put in a lot of study time." The roads were surprisingly deserted for a California morning as they drove in pleasant silence for a while, with the Pacific Ocean sparkling to their left. Hector thought Elon might have been involved, possibly coordinating with the police to temporarily reroute traffic away from their route. "Grandpa," Miguel said at last, his tone more solemn than before. "May I ask you a question?" "Anything." "Are you going to die soon, Mijo?" Between them, the question lingered. Hector had always been straightforward with his grandson, but he was hesitant now. Carefully, he said, "The doctors are trying something new. Something that could extend my life." "The project that Mr. Musk is assisting with?" Miguel inquired. "Indeed." Hector gasped. "How were you aware of that?" Miguel didn't lose sight of the road. "I heard Mom and Nurse Tomas conversing." She was in tears. Hector felt sorrow for his daughter and the weight she bore. "Miguel, I'm sorry you heard that." "It's all right," the boy said. "Treatments for cancer have been on my reading list. Some of the new ones are pretty awesome. Cancer cell detecting nanorobots. Immune system reprogramming through genetic therapy." Hector smiled slightly and remarked, "That sounds like science fiction." "Grandpa, everything begins as science fiction. Mr. Musk himself stated as much. Autonomously landing rockets, self-driving automobiles, and Mars colonies. People also believed that none of that was possible." Hector gave his grandson a fresh look. When had this kid grown so intelligent? "Stop at the next vantage point," Hector advised. "I have something I'd like to show you." They paused at a picturesque vantage point far above the sea a short while later. Tomas parked a respectful distance away, allowing them privacy while still being visible. Hector leaned on his portable oxygen tank as he slowly exited the vehicle. Miguel rushed over to assist him. They strolled to the railing together and gazed out at the Pacific's limitless blue. Waves crashed against rocky cliffs far below, while seagulls soared on thermal currents. Miguel declared it to be lovely. "Yes," Hector said, "it is. Miguel, there's something I want you to know. Regardless of the success or failure of this new treatment, I have had a good and fortunate life." Miguel gazed up at him, tears still in his eyes. "One of the best gifts I ever got was meeting you," Hector added. "I can't even begin to describe how proud I am to see you develop into the person you are becoming." "Please don't leave," Miguel muttered. "Even though I don't want to go, Mijo, I need you to keep something in mind if I do." Hector touched Miguel's shoulder with his grizzled hand. "Love does not end with death. It endures in recollections, in the teachings we impart, and in the ways we transform one another's lives." Miguel used the back of his hand to wipe his eyes. "Grandpa, I'll remember." Hector reached into his pocket and took out the Tesla's keys. They were pressed into Miguel's hand. "You can now have these. Miguel, the car is just a car, but what it stands for matters. It's an obligation." "What are you saying?" Miguel glanced down at the keys and asked. "The solar panels and this car are all instruments to help create a better world. It is now your responsibility to use these tools to improve things for everyone, not just for yourself." Miguel nodded solemnly and wrapped his fingers around the keys. "I swear." The grandfather and grandson stood there for a moment longer, framed by the boundless sky and the vast ocean. Hector then gave Miguel a back pat. "Let's go back. I believe I should get some sleep before tomorrow." Miguel opened up more on the drive back to the hotel about his aspirations. Like the engineers at Tesla, he aspired to be one. His goal was to create energy systems for underdeveloped nations. His goal was to prevent climate change. Hector asked questions and listened, encouraging. He understood that this talk was a gift, a glimpse of a future he might not otherwise see. Miguel turned to his grandfather as they arrived at the hotel. "Grandpa, this was the most amazing ride ever." "Thank you." Hector smiled back, "Thank you for driving, Mijo. You performed admirably." Hector later experienced the same pain in his chest as Thomas escorted him back to his room for a rest in the afternoon. The exertion of the morning had worn down his deteriorating body, and the medication was wearing off. His heart, however, was full. In addition to memories, the morning spent with Miguel had given him a glimpse of the man his grandson would grow up to be. A boy who bravely confronted harsh realities. A young man who viewed obstacles as chances. Someone who would uphold the principles Hector had made an effort to live by. Hector clung to that vision as he fell asleep, the wooden box on his nightstand still unopened. The day had been ideal, regardless of what the future held. A sharp, stabbing pain in Hector's chest interrupted his nap. His eyes flew open in an attempt to catch his breath. As he struggled to keep the darkness from encroaching on his vision, the room whirled around him, faces becoming blurry. "Mr. Ramirez." Suddenly, Thomas was at his side, looking at the monitors that had started to flash warnings. "Keep your cool. I will give you more oxygen." The nurse moved swiftly, changing tubes and giving prescriptions. He was calling for emergency assistance, and Hector could hear him speaking urgently into a phone. Medical staff began to fill the room a few minutes later. Hector heard bits and pieces of conversation through the fog of pain and confusion. Lowering blood pressure. Pneumothorax, perhaps. Stabilization is required prior to transportation. At his bedside, Valeria emerged, her face tensed with terror. "Can you hear me, Dad?" Hector managed only a feeble nod, unable to speak. In an attempt to reassure her via the connection, he squeezed her hand. A doctor Hector didn't recognize was saying, "We have to get him to the hospital right away. We will have to wait for the treatment. I'll give Mr. Musk a call." Lydia's voice was coming from close by. Before long, Hector was being moved to a stretcher, causing new waves of pain to shoot through his chest. He saw Miguel standing in the hallway, his eyes wide with fear, as they wheeled him out of the room. The boy called out, "Grandpa," in a scared little voice. As they went by, Hector managed to whisper, "It's okay, Mijo. It's all right," but Miguel didn't believe it based on his grandson's expression. The hours that followed were a haze of bright lights, sirens, and medical jargon. Hector was wheeled through the hospital hallways, only dimly aware that he was in an ambulance. Medical professionals wearing surgical masks leaned over him and asked him questions he was having trouble answering. One idea emerged repeatedly through the haze of suffering. He may not be able to bid farewell. Ruth attempted to console Miguel as Valeria paced nervously in the hospital waiting room. The boy refused to talk or even look up, instead sitting motionless and gazing at his shoes. Lydia assured them that he was receiving the best care available. "It has been insured by Mr. Musk." Elon showed up at the waiting room door as though his name had been called. His hair was unkempt, his clothes were wrinkled, and his eyes were shadowed with weariness. Without introducing himself, he asked how he was. Valeria said, her voice raspy with tears, "They're still working on him. They claimed that his lung partially collapsed due to pressure and fluid accumulation." Elon gave a somber nod. "I have Dr. Harrison with me. She is currently conferring with the surgical team." He walked across the room to Miguel's seat. He spoke softly, bending to the boy's eye level. "Miguel, your grandfather is really strong. He is putting up a fierce fight." Miguel's face was streaked with dried tears when he finally looked up. "Will he die?" Elon's assurances weren't hollow. "I'm not sure," he admitted candidly, "but I am aware that everyone in this place is trying their hardest to assist him." False comfort would not have seemed to have the same effect on Miguel as the honesty did. He gave me a small nod before asking if I could see him. Elon got up and said, "Let me find out." He looked at Lydia. "Have the research team bring the prototype and provide us with an update. We may still be able to give the treatment if he stabilizes sufficiently." Elon sat next to Miguel and offered the boy his tablet while they waited. "Do you want to watch something? This could be a good way to kill time." Miguel reluctantly accepted the gadget. A design program displaying Miguel's customized Tesla Model 3 was displayed on the screen. "These are the changes we made for your grandfather," Elon said, indicating various locations, such as the storage of the oxygen tank and special hand grips. "There, the seat can be adjusted to make getting in and out easier for someone with limited mobility." Miguel gradually became interested as he explained the design elements to him. He asked questions and even offered suggestions for enhancements. It served as a pleasant diversion from the stress of waiting. A blue-scrubbed surgeon finally emerged in the doorway after what felt like hours. Valeria hurried forward. "Ramirez family." "Yes, what's up with my dad?" "For now, we've stabilized him," the surgeon said. Fluid pressure from his progressing cancer was the cause of the pneumothorax, or collapsed lung. To remove the fluid and reinflate the lung, we have placed a chest tube. He is very weak, but he is conscious. "Is he visible to us?" Valeria inquired. "Just family for the time being, and only for a short while. He needs to sleep." Elon stopped Valeria and Miguel as they were about to follow the doctor. He took the little wooden box from Hector's bedside table and retrieved it from his pocket. "This may be what he wants." Valeria accepted the box, perplexed but too preoccupied to inquire. Around Hector's bed in the intensive care unit, machines beeped steadily. He was hooked up to wires and tubes for medication drips and monitors. An oxygen mask partially covered his face. His eyes were open and brightened when he saw his family, but his skin was pale beneath his tan. He whispered, "There you are," as Miguel and Valeria walked over to the bed. Valeria took his hand and said, "Don't try to talk, Dad. Don't use too much force." Miguel, obviously alarmed by all the medical equipment, stood tentatively at the foot of the bed. Weakly, Hector beckoned, "Come here, Mijo." Hector forced a tiny smile when Miguel got to his side. "I apologize for our day." Miguel tried to be brave and said, "It's okay, Grandpa. When you're feeling better, we can go driving once more." Hector nodded, although there was a hint of knowledge in his eyes. "Sure, once I'm feeling better." Valeria thought of the box she was holding. "Dad, this was sent for you by Mr. Musk." Hector's eyes grew a little wider. "Yes, the box." He glanced back at the box after glancing at Miguel and Valeria. "It's probably time to open it." There was a nurse in the doorway. "I apologize, but he has to see the doctor right now. You'll need to leave." Hector said, "Wait," his voice growing louder. "For the box, you must all be present, including Elon." The nurse appeared unsure, but she hesitated at the intensity in Hector's eyes. "Give me a few more minutes, and I'll get the doctor," she said. Hector turned to Miguel as she walked away. "Look for Elon. The box is for everyone." Miguel gave a nod and hurried out of the room. He came back a few moments later, followed by Dr. Harrison, Ruth, Lydia, and Elon. Valeria held the wooden box as the nurse warned, "We only have a few minutes." Elon's eyes met Hector's. "Is now the appropriate moment?" Weakly, he asked. Elon nodded and walked over to the bedside. "Yes, everything is ideal right now." Valeria gave her father the box, but his hands were too shaken to open it. He whispered to Miguel, "You do it. In any case, it's for you." Miguel picked up the gleaming wooden box with care. It had a simple brass latch that opened with a soft click, but no lock. What appeared to be a tiny flash drive with the Tesla logo engraved on it was inside, tucked away on a bed of velvet. There was a folded letter next to it. Hector told Valeria to read it. With every word his voice grew weaker. After unfolding the letter, Valeria started reading it out loud. What you are holding in your hands, Mr. Ramirez, is the culmination of 5 years of study and innumerable hours of labor by some of the most brilliant minds in medical science. It includes all of the information about our experimental cancer treatment, including every test result, procedure, success, and setback. However, it also holds hope, which is more valuable. Millions of people with terminal cancer may eventually benefit from a treatment that this drive holds the key to. Although it's a start, it's not yet a cure. With the stipulation that the treatment, once it is perfected, be made available to everyone who needs it, regardless of their financial situation, I have made arrangements for this research to be donated to a consortium of cancer research centers worldwide. The Hector Ramirez Foundation for Cancer Research will be the beneficiary of the donation. Our understanding has already advanced because of your bravery in consenting to be our first trial patient. Know that your legacy will endure in everyone who gains from this research, regardless of how many years or days the treatment prolongs your life. While some people construct rockets and others operate buses, improving the world for future generations is the greatest accomplishment any of us can aspire to. With great respect and appreciation, you have demonstrated to me what that really means. Elon Musk. The only sound in the room after Valeria finished reading was the constant beep of monitors. She looked at her father, tears running down her cheeks. Do you know what this means, Dad? Hector gave a feeble nod. Miguel will have something to be proud of as a result. He looked into his grandson's eyes. The name of your grandfather will be helpful. Dr. Harrison took the stage. There's more, Mr. Ramirez. Your blood work's preliminary findings are encouraging. There are indications that the treatment we initiated prior to your emergency is working. Your cancer cells are reacting. In order for him to recover? Miguel asked, his face glowing with hope. Dr. Harrison was careful with her word choice. Although the cancer is still quite advanced, the treatment may extend his life. What is the amount? We're not yet able to say. Hector whispered, more time. All I wanted was that. Elon took a step toward the bed. The foundation will be put in place right away. The first $20 million of funding has already been transferred, with more to follow. Hector's gaze expanded. It's excessive. No, Elon said plainly, not for what you've given us. At the door, the nurse reappeared. I apologize, but the doctor says everyone must go right away. Before beginning the next stage of treatment, Mr. Ramirez needs to take some time off. Miguel stayed at his grandfather's side while the others got ready to depart. I'll be back shortly. All right, I'll wait. Hector squeezed his hand and promised. A video started making the rounds on social media 6 months later. It featured a boy standing proudly next to a detailed model of a home solar energy system at a school science fair. Miguel Ramirez is my name. The boy's voice was confident and clear from the outset. Home energy independence is the name of my project. How the world can be transformed by solar power. The camera panned to the audience as he described the operation of the system, pausing on an old man seated in the front row. Hector Ramirez watched his grandson with obvious pride, despite being thin and on portable oxygen. Miguel paused after completing his technical explanation before continuing in a more intimate manner. My grandfather is the reason this project holds special meaning for me. Hector was once more in focus. He was dying of cancer 6 months ago. Then, however, a remarkable event occurred. Everything changed for him when he met this person. Hector approached the stage slowly as Miguel gestured. Hector took the microphone, and the two stood side by side. He said in a strong, raspy voice, "My name is Hector Ramirez. I was given less than 6 months to live by doctors last year. I'm still here today. Owing to an experimental remedy created by researchers with Elon Musk's funding. He displayed his lung scans before and after, clearly describing how the treatment had reduced the size of his tumors. Honestly, he explained, I'm not cured. However, I have more time. It's time to watch my grandson mature. It's time to assist others. The footage shifted to Hector and Miguel driving their blue Tesla to visit cancer patients at a nearby hospital, planting trees in a community garden, and putting solar panels on a neighbor's roof. Hector added that the Hector Ramirez Foundation now funds cancer research in 5 nations. Additionally, we are getting closer to universal access to better treatments every day. News outlets picked up the story as the video went viral online. When reporters asked Tesla for comments, the company only provided a succinct statement. According to Mr. Musk, his friendship with the Ramirez family is personal. Elon only shared a brief message on social media. This was made possible by Hector's bravery. I simply gave them the chance. Hector and Miguel were seen pulling up to a well-known Tesla showroom in Phoenix in the last scene of the viral video. The salesman who had fired Hector months earlier came in as they walked in, not immediately recognizing them. The man appeared embarrassed when he realized, but Hector welcomed him and explained that Miguel was interested in finding out how Tesla vehicles were maintained. Just as he had been that fateful day, Hector saw an old woman being ignored at the front desk as they conversed. He excused himself without hesitation and went to assist her. As he introduced himself and offered to help, the camera followed him. Despite everything he had experienced, he was genuinely and naturally kind. Hector and Miguel were seen leaving the showroom together in the last picture, with long shadows cast behind them by the lowering sun. Miguel's voice narrated, "The doctors say Grandpa's cancer might come back stronger someday. Every day we spend together is a gift, even though the treatment isn't a cure." Hector's voice went on to say that there is an opportunity to change the world every single day. We appreciate you joining us for this touching story of unanticipated generosity and enduring influence. We hope that Hector, Miguel, and Elon Musk's journey was enjoyable. From what location are you listening today? We would love to know where in the world this story was published. For more motivational content like this, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you like this story. Every week, we present fresh tales that demonstrate the strength of kindness, generosity, and interpersonal relationships. Remember to tell your friends and family about this video. More positive ripples are created in the world when tales of awareness and kindness are shared. In the same way that Elon's small gesture of kindness toward Hector brought about positive change. Until the next time, keep in mind that every day presents a chance to positively impact someone's life, regardless of how minor the action may appear.